us JP players, this is dawn of the final day before the beginning of something completely new. As you can see, the gems are ready. It's almost the beginning of G in JP0, but for you global guys, it's basically the start of a meta that is beyond just the 3 paladins, right? This is something that goes beyond just shadows and golds and royals and adds Kagero and Link Joker and Bermuda to the mix, and it becomes a pretty nice and varied format in my opinion. Like, I think this set and next set makes the Legion format particularly fun in my opinion, especially the next set, because I think they really support a lot of decks in a very nice way. And even though there's a clear kind of like tier 1 of decks, the tier 2 decks are really strong as well, and you can bring them to rank super easily. Like, I've literally been climbing with Mega Colony the last few days just because I wanted to prove a point, you know. I just wanted to like play only like Spikes and Mega Colony as practice for like deck and fights, and essentially just play those 2 clans. So honestly, climb with whatever you want, but that's not the point of this video. We are taking a look at the set that is coming out for you guys, set 20 if I'm not mistaken, for global. So this is going to be the second last set of the original Vanguard series before we go to Vanguard G, which is where we're going tomorrow on the JP server. And of course, if you guys want to join us for the fun, if you're watching this right now, if you want to join the fun and watch the G pack opening, the very first G set pack opening, it's going to be extra extravagant tomorrow. Make sure you head on over to twitch.tv/DifferentFight. I think we'll be going live at around like 9:30 a.m. Central European Summertime. But otherwise, you can just follow the channel and, you know, keep the bell button on and you'll be notified when I go live. But anyway, enough talking. Let's get into this set and take a look at what it has brought to the meta. So this set has support for 5 clans. So we have Kagero, Link Joker, Bermudas, Genesis, and Aqua Force. So there's basically, you know, 3 big winners and then 2 kind of like rogue decks, one of which I think is a bigger winner than the other. And so we're going to start off with, I think Kagero appears first. No, Genesis appears first in order of clans. So we'll take a look at Genesis, which is basically the witch support. So witches are an archetype that's kind of existed for a long time. I mean, you guys have all been using a witch if you've been playing Genesis for a while, which is of course the Chamomile. So she's actually a witch, and so of course that is a card that's been a staple in Genesis for a long time, but they basically made it into a whole archetype, which a lot of people really do like, and there's a lot of attachment to this archetype too. So let's take a look at it, right? First, we have the starter, which is the witch Koroha. So she says you put it to soul, and then for that turn give a unit plus 3k. So nothing too great. You'll always use this starter instead if you want to use a witch, which is the Stevia, literally Stevia. If your Vanguard is a witch, count +1 and put her into the soul. So that's nice, she gives you a soul. And look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put one of them into your soul, and then put the rest into your drop zone, and then choose one of your witches and give them plus 5k power. So it's a pretty nice ability because you get to actually like fill up your soul by 2 cards, and on top of that fill up your drop zone, which gives you the Legion cost, which is also very nice. So I actually quite like this starter, and I did use it myself. Then we have the witch 10k attacker if your Vanguard is a witch, which is pretty straightforward. And witches also get their own PG, which is definitely nice because you have a lot of like witch specific searching, so you can actually add this PG to your hand with one of the legions mid battle, which is very nice. So we do like that quite a lot. Then moving forward, we have a couple rares as well as a double rare. So this is the Chikori, she's one of the legion mates and also a 12k attacker if you have a witch Vanguard. Then we have the Jasmine, so she is when placed on rearguard circle. If your Vanguard is a witch, count +1, soul charge 3, and gain plus 3k power. So it's a CB for soul charge, which you sometimes do need, but I try not to use her too much. She's basically there because she's a legion mate as well, so that's like the big reason there. But this card, the Cardamon, is probably the best addition. She's a double rare, which says in the soul, when she's put into the drop zone, if your Vanguard is a witch, count +1, you may call this card and give it plus 4k power. So it's kind of like a Chamomile, but witch exclusive, but it gains more power. And of course, with one of the legions, you can give it even more power. So therefore, you can actually get over defensives pretty well. And it basically just gives you another like 4 copies of Chamomile into your deck, so you can always superior call mid battle phase, which is super nice. So we definitely like her a lot. She's a card that's worth playing, and you know, you can check out my deck and fight if you want to see more about this deck as well, because I really did enjoy it. And then we have 2 triple rares. First we have Mint. This is the main witch legion, I guess, one of the most like, I guess, rememberable ones, most memorable, yes, memorable, that's the word. When she attacks, if you're in Legion state, Soul Blast 3, and for that turn she gets plus 10k power in the following ability. All of your front row witch rearguards get plus 5k power. So that's what I meant by like, you know, this deck can actually get over defensives a fair bit, and you also get a lot of multi-attack because of, you know, Chamomile and the Cardamon. So you basically get to attack 5 times, plus you also get power, which is really nice. And then also she says once per turn, if you have another middle column unit with witch in its name, count +1, soul charge 3. So if you're missing soul for the cost or something, you can always use that. But keep in mind, there's no counter charge in this deck, or at least not a reliable one unless I'm like missing something. So be careful with your counterblasts and don't overuse them. The other Legion is Fennel. She is the one that Legions with Jasmine, and she says, during the turn that you Legioned, at the end of the battle that she attacked the Vanguard, Soul Blast 3, look at top 5 cards of your deck and add 2 witches from among them to your hand. So that's what I meant by you want to play the new witch PGs, because this lets you actually add them to your hand from the top 5 cards of your deck. So it's really, really cool. On top of that, she is on Ride, Counterblast 1, Soul Charge 3, so they basically all give you Soul Charge 3 one way or another. So this deck is actually pretty decent, I would say. It's really, really fun. That's one thing for sure. And some people have actually brought it to Zero Championship before. I did a video on like the top 16 decks at the last Zero Championship, and there was like a Regalia Witch Fusion deck, which is pretty interesting, so you guys can try that out if you want to. And I think it's a pretty interesting deck, so definitely give it a run if that's what interests you. Moving on though, let's go at Kagero. So Kagero, of course, gets 2 waves of support, no, 3 waves of support back to back, because you have this set, then you have the Great in the next set, and then you have the first set of G, where it's basically one of the main clans, you know, because of Anjo Mamoru and his Blade Master and the Cross and everything like that. So we're gonna have to look at Kagero for quite a few times in a row. Starting off with the new starters though, we have this guy. When you Legion for that battle, for that turn, gain 5k power. And then this, not this dude, he says, of course, he's a Forerunner with Resist. And if the attack that the boosted hits a Vanguard, if you're in Legion state, counterblast 1, and choose your opponent's rear guards in the same column as this unit and retire them, and then put this unit into the soul. So yeah, it's a cool counterblast 1, potentially retired 2, but there's a different starter that exists that kind of outshines it. So that's always going to be the problem with these cards, you know, just for Kagero in general. Starters are really hard to, it's hard to out creep Conroe, and I think even going into G, that's not going to change. That's really not going to change. All right, then let's take a look at the Perditions that were added in this set. So there's, of course, the archetype for Kagero this set. So we have this guy, who, when he boosts the Vanguard, if you're in Legion state, gain 4k power. You'll notice there's a lot of generics in this set. This guy is a 10k attacker if your Vanguard is a Perdition. It's okay. This guy says, if your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card ability, he gets plus 3k for that turn. So it stacks for every time you retire, which I've seen some people use this card, so it might have some use. There's a Perdition PG. If you want to have them, if you don't have old PGs, you know, it's always nice to have. And of course, we also have the Mariko. This guy says, when your opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit is retired by your card's ability, if your Vanguard is a Perdition, very specific. So if you're sitting on Nouvelle, or if you're sitting on the Dauntless or something, or on an Overlord, this will not proc. But if you are sitting on a Perdition, you can Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1. So it's actually pretty good ability. One of the nicest counterchargers we've had so far until the, you know, G era. But it's pretty cool. Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1, and if you pop 2 in that column, you can Soul Blast 2 to actually like countercharge 2, which is really nice. Refund some costs, and so it's definitely a good card. I played at like 1 or 2 copies in general. You can watch my old DifferentFights to see how that card has evolved in use overall. But definitely don't be afraid to experiment with it, because it's a very nice and like pretty generic card too. Alright, then for the grade 2s, we have call out generic stuff. During the turn you Legion, gain 4k. Then this guy says, during this turn, if your opponent doesn't have any rearguards in the same column as this guy, he gains plus 3k. This is a dude that looks like Dragonic Descendant, but like, you know, on a horse, basically. Then we have the Legion mate of our main Legion, basically, Vortex Dragon Youth. So this is the Whirlwind Dragon. He's a 12k attacker for Perditions, nothing too special, but he's also a Persona Blaster, so that's pretty good. 10k vanilla for Perditions as well. Then we have this guy, who I thought was pretty good on release, but now I think he's okay, which is the Erham. When you Legion, counterblast 1, and choose an opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit and retire it. So counterblast 1 to pop an opponent's intercept is pretty good, but it's only during the turn you Legion, so that's what makes it not as great, unfortunately, but it's an okay card. And then we have the Menace Laser Dragon, which is one of the Legion mates to one of the Legions. This guy says, on place on rearguard circle, counterblast 2, retire an opponent's rearguard in the same column as its unit. So it's one of the weaker retires, CB2, and it's not even like a Berserk where you can choose what you want to retire. It's kind of weak, to be honest, but he's a Legion mate, so you do run him depending on how many copies of his Legion leader you actually play. But the grade 2s are definitely pretty good. Like if you're going to pick up anything here, obviously it's like this thing is really important. This you might need like 1 or 2, I guess. And apart from that, not much else, to be honest. Same for the grade 1s, like you want PGs, I guess, if you're playing Perditions, and you basically want this guy like once or twice, but apart from that, not much else. But for the grade 3s, you want a lot, so let me tell you that much. We have some generic stuff, of course. First, when it attacks Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, gain 3k, you know, just generic. This guy's also pretty generic, I think. Oh, no, this guy is not generic. He's a Vanguard rearguard circle ability. When you drive check a grade 3, counterblast 2, choose an opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit and retire it. So okay, it's okay, very specific. I like this guy's art a lot, even though he's not a great card, but his art looks insanely cool. When placed on Vanguard Rearguard Circle, count plus 2, and then choose an opponent's Rearguard in the same column as this unit and retire it. Same effect as the grade 2 that we looked at earlier, so nothing too special. This guy is the Rare Legion, so 5k on Vanguard, plus 2k on Rearguard, nothing too special. But then we go into the actual legions for the clan. First, we have the Pain Laser Dragon, so this one is still pretty decent, to be honest. When you Legion, count plus 1, choose an opponent's column and retire it. So that is pretty sick, because CB1 to pop an opponent's like an intercept and the booster potentially is pretty good, and he also gains plus 3k every time you retire an opponent's rearguard by your card's ability, which is pretty cool because he becomes 26, which is sweet, right? It's a good spot to have. You get over defensives, is pretty good. But of course, the best legion, the main legion for Kagero, is the Vortex Dragon Ute. So this legion's with a 12k attacker, and it says once per turn, if you're in legion state, count plus 2 and discard a card with the same name as one of your vanguards, and then you choose 2 of your opponent's rearguards that are grade 2 or lower and retire them. Then, if your opponent's damage zone is 4 or less, you can deal 1 damage to your opponent, and that damage check, if they check a trigger, it will not activate. So that is of course very nice. A trigger nullifying damage check that is forced in the main phase is really cool. And of course he also gains plus 3k every time you retire an opponent's rearguard by your effect. So by this effect alone, he becomes 26 as well. But of course keep in mind that like this card is obviously really good, right? It's an insane card, but please be careful that you don't use the skill too early, because if your opponent's at like 2 damage, right, and you burn them to 3, and then you have to keep in mind, you have to make columns now that are 16k base, and actually you're gonna have to make a column that's 16 to hit them, then you need like a 21 or a 26 to hit them, and then like a 21, 26, or 31, or it can go as high as you want, depending on their damage checks. So this skill really is best to use when your opponent's at 4, because then you push them to 5, even if they get a defensive, they stay at 16, and then you just need to bash them with 16 on rear, 16 on rear, 26 on van, boom, you're done. That's it. That's all you need. And so I think for that reason, that's why a lot of people run this with like Dauntless Drive, or they run it with the End, because those are the cards that they use to push the opponent to 4, and then they go into Vortex to actually finish the game. So please keep that in mind when you play this card, because it's a very strong card, but it needs to be used right, okay? Just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. So yeah, that's basically Kagero. It's pretty straightforward. It's a very strong clan as always, and it gets only better with the Great, and then it gets only better with the Cross and Blade Master and all the amazing Kagero strides in the set after that. So look forward to all the great things coming your way as a Kagero player. Alright, next, the other big feature of this set is of course Link Joker. So this one is finally the first wave of Link Joker support in the entire Legion era, so it was quite exciting. I actually like the cards in this set quite a lot. So we have of course a lot of generic, so please bear with me right now. When you Legion, gain 5k for that turn. As I said, generic, but it's a Star-vader. Then this guy is also Star-vader. When he boosts, if you have a locked card on your opponent's side of the field, he gains plus 3k, so he's like the Jewel Knight starter. Also drawn by Daisuke, so he looks quite sick, not gonna lie. There's a lot of really good looking commons in this set. And then we have my favorite starter, Mr. Robin Knight, who's also Star-vader, that has resist. And when you are in Legion state, if your opponent has a locked card, you can count plus 2, put this into the Assault, and choose an opponent's front and back row rearguard and lock them. So if you kept something locked, or like Omega locked, or like, Palladiumed, then you can basically, like, as long as you're in Legion, use this guy to lock their other front row and back row, which is pretty sick because you get 2 for 1 card. It's 2 CB, but like if that finishes the game for you, then like there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's still a great card. So I quite like that starter. You should definitely keep that in mind as well, in my opinion. And now let's take a look at all these commons and rares. This guy is actually a pretty good common. I ran this back in this set. When you place on Rearguard Circle, Soul Blast 1 for that turn, give another unit plus 5k power. Reason why you run this, even though it's 5k base, is just because it fills your drop zone from your soul, and it lets you get over defensives by making 21k columns, which is really sick in my opinion. So I do like that quite a lot. This thing is when it boosts the Vanguard if you're in Legion state plus 4k, so it's a 10k booster. This guy is another common that looks very sick, but he just kind of must 1 gain 1k. Kind of unfortunate. She also looks super sick. Like, look at this, man. B-side just knocks out of the park every time, but she just says during your turn, if your opponent has a locked card, gain 3k on the front row rearguard circle. So she's a 10k attacker, but man does she look good. Man does she look good. Then we have this thing, once per turn, when your opponent's rearguard is locked by your card's ability, if your Vanguard is Star-vader, you can discard 1 and draw 1. So if you want to filter, this card might be worth running, but most people don't. You also have this as an option, which says when placed, if your opponent has a locked card, you can discard 1 and draw 1. So therefore, you have a better way to fill up your drop zone and actually, just like put units on the board. And it's 7k power over 6k that this unit is. So it's also definitely quite nice. All right, then let's take a look at the new grade 2s. So we have this Eagle, he says during your turn, if you Legions, gain 4k. That's fine. Then another beautiful B-side artwork. Look at these commons, man. So good. During your turn, if your opponent's a lock card, gain 3k. Again, 12k attacker, but man, this could have been something like a better card, and she would have been like definitely more memorable, because I think like to me this art looks better than like Colony Maker. Honestly, like some of these commons deserve justice. Please bring them back in the V series. Please, please, please. Then we have Osmium. This is one of the Legion mates. When he attacks and the attack hits a Vanguard, if your Vanguard is a Star-vader, cost 1, choose an opponent's locked card, and that card does not unlock at the end of their turn. So basically it's an Omega lock for cost 1, and it's pretty good. Trust me, this card is actually pretty nice because it's basically like an additional lock, and if you're not playing against something that has an unlocker, that's pretty good. So we definitely do like that. Damn, I just realized I have 9 photons. That's insane. Then we have Mr. Sarfa, so Sulfur. At the beginning of your turn, you can cost 1 and put this into the soul, and then choose an opponent's rear guard that unlocked during your during this beginning of the turn, or during their opponent's last end phase rather, and lock it once more. So this guy is basically Palladium on a grade 2 body, but of course because of that, you know, if he gets intercepted away, you won't be able to use that skill, so keep it in mind. We have a new 10k vanilla for Link Joker as well. And finally, of course, we have Mr. Photon. So he has this is the like rank reward art. That's the one in this set, and that's the one in next set. I like the one in the next set the most, so I'll show you that one. So on place, on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is a Star-vader, must 2 and lock an opponent's rearguard. It's very different from the TCG. So if you expected the TCG ability where he basically like locks for free, not yet. At least not yet. Maybe he'll get buffed one day. But he's basically a Blaster Blade for Link Joker. Like CB2 to lock something is still quite good because it can win you the game on the spot. Or if your opponent overcommitted early, you can also punish them for it, which I think is a very nice way to use the card. A lot of people thought it was going to be pretty bad when it released, but honestly it ended up being super meta relevant. So I think that you can safely grab it and use it and play with it. So don't worry about it too much. All right, let's take a look at more generic cards here. On attack to Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, gain 3k. All right. Then when attacks, Blast 1, gain 3k. All right. Generic Legion that gains 5k on Vanguard, 2k on Rearguard. But again, super sick art. Like, man, they look so good. Then this guy, on place, Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 1, Blast 1. Search your deck for a Garnet Star Dragon and add it to your hand. And then when it attacks the Vanguard, gains 2k power. So it's a searcher for this main Legion that we'll take a look at in a second. We have the promo Break Ride from way back in the Limit Break era. So this one is used in Glendio's decks, actually. This is the Dumbstardium. When you break right over him, so it's still Limerick 4, cost 2 and discard 1 grade 3 from your hand. So it's a bit more expensive than Infinite Zero, but for that turn, your Vanguard gets plus 10k power, and you lock 3 of your opponent's rearguards. So you can lock both the front and the back row, and if you're using Glendio's, this is especially good because that starts you on that, you know, game-winning, you know, world end even faster. So it's really cool, and it also gains 3k when attacks the Vanguard, which is pretty nice. And then finally, we have up next, Mr. Garnet Star Dragon. So he legions with Photon, and he says when you legion, discard 1 Star-vader from your hand to choose an opponent's front row and back row rearguard and lock them. And of course, when he attacks the Vanguard, he gains plus 2k power. So this is arguably still the best legion that Link Joker has because it's super generic, right? It doesn't need, like, I mean, you can't run it in the leaders, but I mean, technically you can. But you need to discard Star-vaders for it, but it's just discard 1 to lock 2, no counterblast or anything, is really good, right? It's locked to turn 4 if you're going first, but it's a great card. It's the first Legion you want to Legion usually, because then you can lock for free, and then you can like Omega lock something, and then that way next turn kind of like back it up with something else. So I think it's a really great card. It's just like arguably the best Legion we have right now. There's also a promo Legion that you'll find in the V coupon store. So this is the Halfrium. He Legions with Radon, the 12k attacker, and when he attacks the Vanguard, if you're in Legion state, for every lock card your opponent has, you can choose one of your units and give it plus 5k for that turn. And then you can also combust 1 to lock an opponent's rearguard in the back row. So it's kind of like Nebula Lord in a way. I think it's honestly the best comparison I can give you is like Nebula Lord, but as a Legion. So I don't really play. I played as like a 1-of, I think, because it's okay, but that's about it. And then we have the Imaginary Plane Dragon. So this is the other Legion that you run this set. Legions with the Osmium, and says when you Legion, combust 2 and discard 1 Star-vader. And then for every middle column Star-vader unit that you have, you lock an opponent's rearguard. So it is quite literally CB2, discard 1, lock 3, because you'll have 2 from the Legion and 1 behind it, which is the booster, usually the starter. And that will give you a triple lock, which is really nice because you get the whole field locked down basically for CB2. So it's pretty useful, but I think this card does fall off in use after this set. So you don't, like, if you don't necessarily want it and you want to play some of the future cards, like you see here, like pretty cool little cards coming up next set, then maybe pass on it and focus on Garnet Star. Like Garnet Star is by far, like Garnet Star and Photon are super important, and that's why they're rank rewards, because these cards will stay important in this clan for quite a while too. So yeah, hopefully that explains Link Joker to you guys. I think it's still very, very good in this set, so it's definitely very exciting. You know, a lot of people doubted it when it came out, but honestly, Link Joker is super good this set, so I definitely recommend playing it. It's very, very fun. Alright, let's take a look at Aqua Force first, and then we'll finish on Bermuda. So Aqua Force didn't get that many cards, but I got a few, which were pretty interesting. Got some interesting buffs too. We have a new starter. This guy says, if you're in Legion state, put him into the Soul, and give your Vanguard the following ability. When it attacks the Vanguard, if it's the 4th or more battle of that turn, counterblast 1, draw 1, and retire an opponent's rearguard. And he also has Resist. So it's fine. It's like a Bubble Edge Draco Kid, but like Legion gated, which is alright. Like, it's a Maelstrom skill, basically. It's fine. Like, I wouldn't really hype it up too much. It's just a fine card. Alright, then we have a few new cards here. We have this thing, when it boosts, if you're in Legion state, gain 4k. It's fine, I guess it's fine. We have a PG for Blue Storm, so this is also pretty cool, you know, just to have it as for the archetype. And then we also have a Legion locked Wheel Assault. So this says, at the end of the battle that you boosted, if you're in Legion state, choose 2 of your rear guards and swap their positions. So it is Legion locked, which is the worst part of this card, but it's still pretty decent because it's free. The original Wheel Assault cost counterblast 1, so of course that's a big part of it, but it's still a pretty good card, so I would definitely run it like in this set's meta. Now here I need to not confuse which cards were already out before and which cards weren't, because I think the 12k attacker was in the last set of the Link Joker era. Pretty sure all these cards were together with Reverse Maelstrom. I hope I'm not messing that up. But we do have 3 new ones. First we have Milos, which is a Legion unit. He has Resist, which is very, very important for Aqua Force, and once per turn when he attacks the Vanguard at the end of that battle, if you are in Legion state, you can stand him and he loses 5k power. So that's basically a Tidal Assault, but Legion gated, so keep that in mind. But he has Resist, which is a very big part of it. Then we have this, which is the Starless. When he attacks the Vanguard, if you're in Legion state for that turn, if it's the first battle, you gain plus 3k power for that battle. And at the end of that battle, you swap with the unit behind him. So swap with the rear guard behind him, sorry. And then he also says if you're in Legion state once per turn, counterblast 1 for that turn. If this is the first battle of that turn, you can ignore the intercepts. So yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Basil that is gated to Legion, right? So it's a turn 3/turn 4 Basil. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's still a good card. It makes better numbers than Basil did, and it's a 9k base. But again, the whole like being locked to Legion does end up being the kind of like demise of a lot of these cards too. Then we have quite a few cards for the Aqua Force boys here in grade 3. We have the Savarias, who Legions with Yanis, which we didn't take a look at. How could I forget? Mr. Yanis is another grade 2 who says when his attack hits a Vanguard, if it's the 3rd battle of that turn, specifically the 3rd, draw 1. So it's pretty cool. Like you can time it to just get yourself an extra draw and hit with the hit the Vanguard with this guy. So it's pretty cool. But his Legion leader is not that great. So he says like Legions with him, and if you drive check a card with the same name as one of your Vanguards, so himself or the Legion mate, you can counterblast 1 and then choose 2 of your rearguards and stand them. So it's luck reliant, and like standing 2 rears for CB1 is pretty good, but man, that just feels not that worth it when other decks do that kind of stuff way better. So I don't know, don't think it's that worth. And then also counterblast 1 to gain 2k. Crazy Tetra Drive moment, so I think it's okay. Speaking of Tetra Drive, we have Tetra Burst Dragon, who Legions with a Starless, and he says when he attacks the Vanguard, if you're in Legion state, if it's the 4th battle of that turn, counterblast 1, draw 1, and gain plus 5k power and a crit. So it's kind of just like Maelstrom, but he also gains a crit, and it's only CB1, but it does everything that usual Aqua Force bosses do, which is pretty nice, and he gains 3k if you have another unit in the middle column as this unit. So I think it's a pretty decent card to like push your opponent to 5, and then you go into Mr. Mihail, who Legions with the Milos, and at the end of the battle that he attacked, if you're in Legion state, you can discard a card with the same name as one of your Vanguards to do the following. You choose any circles that are not the Vanguard circle, and you can move them around, and then if this is the 4th battle of that turn, you can choose 2 of your rearguards and stand them, and your front row rearguards gain 5k power. So the reason why he moves circles and not units is because that allows you to move locked circles as well. So if your opponent locks your front row, I mean, you're not going to get to 4 battles if your opponent blocks your front row, but I guess you don't need to move the unlocked stuff to the front, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, he lets you basically put the locked stuff to the back and then like still attack with stuff. So he's a pretty interesting card, I would say. And he also gets plus 5k if he attacks the Vanguard for the 4th battle of that turn. So it's a pretty interesting Legion. I think the cards are overall quite decent and pretty fun, so you can definitely try it out, but I will warn you that the deck isn't insanely meta or anything like that. It's a fun deck, but I wouldn't say it's crazy good, unlike Bermuda's in this set, which got some crazy support. As you can see, I've depleted all my materials to build this deck. So I think there's no new grade 1s, no new grade 0s. Literally everything is almost the same except for the grade 2s and the 3s, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, this is where things change. You can see Rowan was here, all the other girls were all here. There's a couple new rares and a couple new double rares, right? So first we have the Lawrence. When her attack hits a Vanguard, if you're in Legion state, combos 1, draw 1, but she's 8k base. Not too bad though, but again, this clan can search specific cards instead of needing to draw them, so that's a big part of it, right? Then we have this girl. When she's bounced to hand, if you're in Legion state, soul charge 1, counter charge 1. Pretty good ability, but of course being locked to being in Legion state isn't super great, so we don't see too many people running her. Then we have one of the Legion mates, which is the Quanxi. She has resist, which is very important, and when she's bounced to hand, soul blast 1, counter blast 1, and draw 1. And she's also one of the Legion mates, which is very, very nice. And finally, we have the best Legion mate, which is the Weapbull. When she's bounced to hand, you can counter blast 1 and search your deck for a card that has the same name as one of your duo units on the field and add it to your hand. And then, if you have cards in your hand with the same name as one of your Vanguards 3 times or more, counter charge 1. So basically, if you have like 3 copies of her in your hand, you basically get the refund of this cost. So that is super sick. Like, it's a really good card that lets you basically, like, you bounce her to then, let's say, target a PG on your board and search your deck for that PG and add it to your hand, which is like, poof, so good. Such a good card. Really amazing Legion mate. And of course, the grade 3s are the main bread and butter of this deck. We have the double rare Legion, the Madore. So she says when your rearguard is bounced back to your hand, if you're in Legion state, she gains plus 5k power, not once per turn, but then once per turn, soul blast 1, counter blast 1, choose a rearguard and bounce it back to your hand. So your rearguard and bounce it back to your hand. It's an okay card. I mean, it looks pretty. I somehow pulled 4 SPs. I don't know how that happened, but you know, it'd be like that. And then we have the 2 Legions that are actually used, which are the triple rares. So we have the Victoria, who Legions with the Quanxi. And she says, when you Legion, choose one of your circles that is not your Vanguard circle, and the card in that circle goes back to your hand. If it was a duo, you can search your deck for a card with the same name as that unit and add it to your hand. So generally, you can actually bounce your PGs from your rearguard circle to your hand and search for another copy. On top of that, if you have a locked card, you can choose the circle that is locked and bounce it to hand, because that's how the ruling works. This literally lets you unlock in Bermuda, which is super strong, and she also gains plus 3k power if you have another unit in the middle column. So that's very good. It's a very good Legion, but on top of that, the card that makes it all work is the Nemuel. So this is the first time that people would really say that Bermuda is tier 1. Like, this card has put Bermuda on the map and is now tier 1. So what does she do? She Legions with Weapbull and says once per turn, when your rearguard is bounced back to your hand, if you're in Legion state, counter blast 2 and search your deck for a unit that is the same name as the card that you bounced 2 times and add it to your hand. And then for that turn, gain a critical. And then if you have 3 or more cards with the same name as one of your Vanguards in your hand, countercharge 2. So yes, this lets you copy one of your rearguards twice to your hand, gain a critical, and also refund its cost if you've played out your hand correctly. And that's not all. Once per turn, soul blast 1, bounce one of your dual rearguards back to hand, which enables the first skill in the first place. Like, this lets you call a PG, use the second skill to soul blast 1 and bounce that PG, and then counter blast 2 to search out 2 more PGs from your hand, gain a crit, and countercharge it all back. And then you get pushed to 5, you PG 3 times, you have 1 PG remaining in hand, you ride Nemuel again, you basically call the last PG in your hand down, and then you Legion up again, use her skill, like Legion those PGs back to your deck, use that skill to search those 2 PGs out, you can call one of them out again and use a Roan to then search out the 4th PG, and just like that you have a deck that can loop 4 PGs every single turn, which is insane. Like, this deck is unkillable. Bermuda is meta. I can't believe it, but here we are. And this deck is not very fun to play against because, of course, it goes to time and it takes forever. And I've had some DifferentFights where I've played against this and they take like 20 minutes. You know, we watch 0 championship games where this deck takes up 20-30 minutes. So yes, Bermuda's meta, but at what cost? But yeah, that basically does it for this set. I'm pretty sure we took a look at everything that we had. So of course, next set will be very exciting because there's so many cool archetypes in it. So I really can't wait to talk to you guys about that too. It's also nice that right now, 0 is only like 2 months apart between Global, or like 2 sets apart, I guess, between Global and JP. We still don't know if Global will have that like 1 month skip like we had in JP to build up time for G. So I guess we'll find out in a couple of months on how that's gonna go. But yeah, that was basically the set. So I hope you guys have good luck in your pulls tomorrow for this set. I think If you're a meta dog like me, you want to go for Kagero and Link Joker and Bermudas. Those are by far the best 3 clans. Aqua Force and Genesis are definitely fun, and especially like Genesis definitely has some potential. Aqua Force I think is kind of struggly, so I wouldn't like put all your resources into that unless you really love the deck. So yeah, that is your kind of wrap up for this set. So hopefully I see you guys tomorrow for the G pack opening, and otherwise I will see you guys next month for the next 0 set analysis. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please do leave it a like, and if you like the content, please do subscribe if you haven't already. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.